Give me just a second right now because I need to open this bottle of wine. This is actually happening. If you need something, I say go ahead. All right. One more minute and I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm almost ready. Um, I come back to my hotel room and there's a bottle of wine waiting for me. I have no idea if they were if my the housekeeping service was like this guy needs a bottle of wine after today, but they gave me a bottle of wine, so cheers or not cheers. I swear I'll be ready in just a moment. Good evening. All right. Welcome to the Rocker Skating Podcast, sponsored by John Wilson Blades. And oh my goodness, I feel like every single time I do a recap, it is some sort of oh my goodness. So, the free dance just finished, and this episode will be recapping the entirety of the ice dance event. So, I'm going to talk really quickly about what happened in the rhythm dance first, and then we'll go into what many are thinking about right now, which is the what happened in the free dance. And there was some really good stuff that happened in the free dance, and then there was some other things that happened in the free dance that we will talk about, and it that leads to a lot of different paths that we will be exploring. The rhythm dance, I want to set the stage here. Um, the rhythm dance was where we started getting an idea of where things were going. Laurence Fournier and Guillaume Cizeron were the ones who won the rhythm dance over Madison Chock, Evan Bates, and that was a reversal of what happened in the team event. And so that was interesting, right? Because in a lot of ways, well, both of them skated better in the rhythm dance than they did in the team event rhythm dance. Most notably, Guillaume Cizeron, who's been having just nervy twizzles all week, had another sort of slight thing on his twizzle in the rhythm dance, but it was a lot better. They skated a lot more open, although it was still not the kind of performance that we have expected from them. They were just a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter than they had been at when they were at their best this season. So it was a surprise to a lot of folks, right? That Fournier Beaudry and Cicerone were over Chalk and Bates. One big thing about that rhythm dance was that the pattern step was leveled down from a 4 to a 3 after review. It was substantiated by video review. We saw the flat bracket that Maddie had at the very end, or wherever that flat bracket was, and so that cost them probably something like 0.75 to a point, and that was the difference between first and second. So they went in to the free dance with a half a point difference, right? Going into the free dance. And then what was also then of interest was then the next really 3 and also really the next 6 because they were separated by really like less than 4 points between 3rd and 8th place, with Gilles Poirier in 3rd with a 86-18 after reversing the team rhythm dance where Lila Fair and Lewis Gibson beat them in the team rhythm dance, and they got the better of them in the rhythm dance in the individual event. And then the hometown, or the home ice, team of Guignard Fabbri were in 5th with an 84-28. Also notable, right, was that, Emilea Zingas and Vadym Kolesnik were, 6th and skated really one of my favorite, skates of the entire day with the rhythm dance. So uh-oh, the mic? Give me a second. Sarah's gonna fix this for me. I'm gonna be right back. I know that I'm hearing that the mic is not happening right now, so give me a second. Well, apparently I can't change this mic while I am talking, so I'm just gonna talk a lot closer to the mic. Hopefully, this will be a little bit better. All right. Get back into this. Okay, so that was a rhythm dance. We talked about how, um okay, the mic is fine. Okay, I will just talk closer to the mic. Let me just get a drink first. Tara, you're gonna take all of this off of the podcast when it gets, actually taken out. Okay. So the top 6 was very interesting, and, the the f my one of my favorite rhythm dances of the entire day was, Zingas and Kolesnik's, rhythm dance, and then it was followed by Reed and Ambrulevichus's, um, uh, rhythm dance, and those 2 were 2 of the highlights of the entire competition for me. They were just so good. They really brought it to the Olympics, both of their Olympic debut, and it was fantastic really to see. But, that is the context of what happened in the rhythm dance. Fournier Beaudry Cizeron with a half point lead over Chalk and Bates coming in to the free dance. And so we look at today, right? And the free dance was a lot of building of frankly very solid free dances that we were seeing throughout the 4 groups, and we were seeing big scores from the very beginning. And it was you were seeing like I think the very first free dance with Valentin Kazimov had 100 points as as their score, and so you knew that we were going to start getting some big scores in the final couple of groups, and it started really with for me with the Tashlers, and they skated really well, and I thought they were a little bit underscored, but they oftentimes get they have issues with that curve lift combo because she doesn't get into position fast enough, and that happened at Europeans, and it happened again here. Cost them a little bit here and there, but I thought they brought a lot of energy. They bring a lot of creativity to the whole thing, and it was great to watch. Laurier Lagac skated fantastically. Their lifts are incredibly good, and that's what they're known for, and that's what they got a whole bunch of points for, and it was great to see. um and then for me, right, a couple of the highlights of the early groups, Davis and Smokin, they continue to get this really great material for their free dances, and they do it incredibly well. I thought Diana Davis was maybe a little bit shakier than normal today, but they held on to everything, and got a great score going in, and then Carrera Ponomarenko, after a really, really trying season, for them to not only make it to the Olympics, but then also to skate their best free dance of the season, and with the exception of Anthony Bonarenko almost wiping out toward the end because he got a little bit too excited and got on the heel of his right blade, and he really saved that one. So, you know, they were fantastic. I loved just how, frankly, the last 2 groups were set up because there was such great skating going on, before the top teams were there, and it was a great setup for the final 2 groups. Now, the second to last group was interesting, right? I was watching the groups again with a friend of mine, and we were talking about how this second to last group has a lot of the potential next 4 years, that we're potentially going to see. You would imagine, right, that Marjorie Lajoie and Zachary Laga would go and go another 4 years. You definitely would imagine that Emilea Zingas and Vadym Kolesnik would. The 2 of them, for me, represent the next generation of US and Canadian skating. I think for everybody represents the next generation of American and Canadian skating, and they were fantastic. I think Lajoie and Ga, we've seen them better. They felt a little smaller here at the Olympics than what we've been used to. Um, I think it's something that they're certainly going to be working on. Uh, we started off that final group with what we knew was going to be a big program, which was Olivia Smart and Tim Deek's Dune Part 2, and it did not disappoint. The thing that was disappointing, however, was the fact that they got an exclamation point on their choreographic step at the end. Uh, I have to go back to video review to see what exactly happened to it. It's not the first time they've gotten that exclamation point. So my guess is they were probably at some point too far apart from each other. Um, it's usually one of a few things, right? They were more than 2 arm lengths apart at some point in that choreographic step, or they went backwards from where they started from. And there are also regulations to that, right? If you're doing some sort of spinning element or lift or something like that, you can go backwards, but if you're just skating forwards, you can't skate backwards, if that makes any sense. Um, so we'll see how that all goes. I'll have to go review the video for that. Le Poirier was they were interesting, right? They changed their Bjork program from even what we saw at Europeans. They added more Bjork. They took out the piece of music that incidentally was the piece of music that Amber Glenn is using for her part of her free skate, and it's been part of this music rights kind of thing over the past week. Thankfully, it all got resolved, and Amber's not having to rethink free skate. But it just so happened that they got it. But uh, the Bjork, I will say, in this arena did not really resonate with the crowd. People were fairly silent most of the time, especially given how loud and rambunctious this crowd has been a lot of this time. And so that was interesting, right, to see that uh, the music itself wasn't quite resonating. It's hard to resonate necessarily with atonal music, or not really atonal, but New York has a certain way of singing that is her very own, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. So to juxtapose that with Olivia and Tim, like everybody was just roaring because they knew they knew the movie, they knew what was going on. It all started with that rotational lift that people were just, like, oohing and eyeing over, and then to juxtapose the Bjork then with what went after, which was, Rita and Amber Levichus's, clubbing program, the Milan audience was all about the clubbing program. Um, they went pretty crazy, especially in the second half when they go into the Twizzles, and then it's exactly actually what they want to happen, because if you listen to the rocker rewatch of that free dance, they talk about how the story of that program is that they're two strangers who meet in a club and they love to dance, and so they first dance with each other and they connect with each other, and then as the program goes on, they open up and open it out to the audience and invite everybody in. And I think the music itself is called One, We Are One, something like that. And the point of it is they want the the crowd to be one with them, and when that all happened, it literally opened the doors for, well, not literally, it figuratively opened the doors for the crowd to come in and join them in their clubbing. So, um, it was great to watch, and that was their best free dance of the season, and they there was a redemption from the messy Europeans free dance that they had, and Rita and Evelevicius end up in the top 6, and we'll talk about why all of that happened. Um, One thing that I will talk about here as well is that the free dance, there's a reason why the free dance benefits certain teams over others, especially when you see their rhythm dance being less rewarded or lower scored. And Olivia and Tim is one of those teams that sometimes struggle with the rhythm dance and getting the grades of execution and all those things that they would otherwise get in the free dance. And that's because the free dance actually is designed to reward extra originality, right? And there are 3 lifts in the free dance. There are multiple choreographic elements, 3 choreographic elements in the free dance. There's a dance spin, there are all these things that allow a team like Olivia and Tim to really rack up the points, because the for them, they get the points out of the creativity of their lifts, right? That rotational lift, you can't not give a 4 or a 5 to that when it's done well, because it's so creative and it takes so much strength and skill and power to be able to get from where they are, which is basically sort of her sitting down and him lifting her up, to actually getting into a rotation, and a really good rotation to beat, right? To boot. And so the people often ask me why there's such a gap between, Olivia and Tim, for example, getting mid 70s, right, in their rhythm dance, and then all of a sudden they get 120 plus in their free dance, and that's the reason. The GOEs of those elements really add up, and it gives them a huge advantage over other teams that may be doing more conventional things. So you could you really saw that with some of the other teams as well, right? I would say Davis and Smolkin are similar in that, in certain ways, Reed and Abrelevicius are too, but they are also very strong at their own. Yes, they actually tend to be very good, uh, sort of traditional partnering skaters, and so you see them excel in both. I keep bearing the lead. We will get there in just a second, but to finish off this um, second to last group of the free dance. It was Emilea Zingas and Vadym Kolesnik who were in 6th place and the last to skate in the second to last group, and they delivered. They, once again, in their Olympic debut, skate lights out, really. I think there was maybe a point in there where I felt like their energy dipped a little bit, but it was, I think that their US Nationals free dance was still a stronger one, but they really, really lived up to the moment here, and they got a season's best, right, internationally, and went into the final group knowing that they were in the top 6. And it really put the pressure on the rest of the teams because, getting a 206 is nothing to sneeze at. A lot of these teams in the Grand Prix, right, the top 5 teams, a lot of them were getting low 200s, mid 200s, and there were there were scenarios where you could see them actually move up, and move up they did because they ended up finishing 5th. We'll talk about why. But Zingas Kolesnik, 5th at their first Olympics. I mean, what a feat for them to just do that. I mean, it's just they have to be incredibly thrilled, incredibly proud of themselves, and then Reed and Amber Levichus over 6th overall. So that means if you haven't watched the free dance, that one of the 5 teams made some very big mistakes that led them to drop out of the top 6. It wasn't Guignard Fabbri who started us off in the final 5. They made a couple of tiny errors. Marco Fabbri has been uh, just a little bit tight and tentative on his twizzles, and it's shown every single program. And he had another twizzle issue here. It wasn't a major issue, but it was major enough that it cost them probably a point and a half to 2 points. And then they had another issue later on that I can't remember. But it wasn't their best skate, but it was very good, and they got themselves in a good position um, to then, push for the podium. It was still gonna be a long shot, right? They ended, um, with a 209. And, if you were looking at the scores and how they were elevating, you would probably expect the the medalists to be in the 210s. But then the next group or the next team came around, and it was Lila Fear and Lewis Gibson, and Jane Torval and Chris Vermeulen were in the house to watch. And we have talked about this since Europeans. Lila Lewis has had twizzle troubles, and it started off at Europeans where she stepped out of the twizzle and the free dance, and they bumped into each other, and there was a big mess. Um, and then it happened again this week. So this week in practice, all week long, you can see Lila Fear working on those twizzles, trying to make sure that she's confident with them. And in the team rhythm dance, there was a bit of an issue. In the individual rhythm dance, there was a bit of an issue. But then this one here in the free dance was the one that really broke it for them because it was another step out, much like what happened at Europeans. They didn't end up bumping into each other, but it was major enough that they got negative grades of execution on it. And, not only that, but she also got her level 4, well, her twizzle is called a level 3, right? So you lose the base points, and then you also then lose the grades of execution. And then they were also, both of them were very tight on their 1-foot steps, and it wasn't the confident, consistent Lila and Lewis that you normally see. And the thing that has always been an advantage for them is that they are consistent, is that they take the bull by the horns and they go and give you what you want, right? Which is an exciting free dance. And really, the free dance was where the the wheels just sort of came off, and it it reflected not just in the elements, but they didn't have the same kind of energy that they usually do because once those twizzles were over, they more or less knew that the dreams of the Olympic medal were out. Um, it was unfortunate and not the way that you would definitely want one of the podium contenders to be skating, and they were very disappointed. They ended up 12th in the free dance and then dropped to 7th, which was not a result that anybody was expecting here um, from Lila and Lewis. So, hopefully they can bounce back. I'm sure they've got another 4 years left in them, let's hope, and, there's plenty that they can do to continue to improve and get a little bit of redemption. Um, so that sets the stage for the final 3, and we start with Piper Gilles and Paul Poirier, and if you have listened to the podcast this season, you will know that I have not been bought in to the version 2 of their Vincent free dance. We know that, the Vincent free dance was a good number of years ago, right? I think it was like 7 years ago. It was the 2018-19 season. It was, really their breakthrough free dance that really started catapulting them to the top and really endearing them to fans in the way that they skate and the uniqueness of what they bring to the ice. And for me, this second version has not really had that sort of feel and success um, over this season so far. And I take it all back because when you think about Olympic atmosphere magic, this was magical. The way they skated it, the way they the Vincent free skate has sometimes been a little bit more of a, like, "Hey, Piper and Paul are having their own conversation and talking to each other," sort of like a feeling, right? Because it's a very emotional program. It is also a very, you know, the story is being told between the 2 of them, and today, the story was told arms wide open for the audience, to the audience, with the 2 of them as the central characters, and they let you into their hearts, and they let you into their to everything about this program and about why it's important to them and why it is the program that they went back to. And I'm getting a little emotional as I'm talking about this because I'm reliving this program in my head, and I have never, ever seen them skate with the kind of freedom and the kind of heart that they gave today, and their elements, because they just let it all go out there, their elements were even more spectacular than they otherwise would have been because they were skating so free, and the emotion paired with this effortlessness of how they skated the program, and there was not one point in that program where I was fearful that something would happen. It was just there I was just there enjoying this magnificent piece of art that I I I I was crying through most of that program, if I'm being honest. And when they finished and the 2 of them had this just outburst release of emotion, I just couldn't deal. Um, cut to Paul ugly crying on center stage on an Olympic ice, and it was so good. And I'm not gonna I won't say anything else except this was the performance of the night for me, and it it just it was everything that makes you love figure skating, and it's one of those moments that I'm I was so incredibly privileged and happy to be in the arena and live for because it's a moment that I myself will never forget, and I'm sure it is a moment that so many of the folks who watched it in the arena, who watched it on TV, who watched it on live stream, they will never forget it either. And what a way for them to do it. Y If you don't give 10s for that, for presentation, I don't know what you give 10s for. It was just amazing. So okay, I'm gonna go take a drink. Cheers to Piper and Paul. They were so happy, by the way, when I saw them, afterwards. I also, by the way, also gave them their PST4 pins because they got the pattern step 4 in the rhythm dance, and, they were also very happy about that. Anyway, Vincent, you've convinced me. Finally, you've convinced me. Okay, so what happened with the last 2? Matty Chalk and Evan Bates comes out, and they delivered. It was one of their best programs, if not their best free dance of the season. Uh, the lifts were phenomenal. The way that they attacked the choreographic elements was fantastic. The twizzles were one of them, which is really, for me, I think their weakest element. Their twizzles were done well. They're always done musically. That was something that I was talking about in the rhythm dance, right? They might not have the power, but they do have one of the features that is the twizzles go with the music, and they always get that right. Um, and it was a really, really great program for them. What was interesting to see was, they had originally gotten a level 4 for Evan's, diagonal step sequence, and it then got leveled down to a 3. That cost them about half a point. So, keep tabs here, right? Keep track. The pattern step 4 to 3 costs them about a point. The diagonal step 4 to 3 in the free dance costs them about half a point. So talking about a point and a half of base value that got lost because of the reviews. Um, so they get their best free dance of the season, something in the 134 to 135 range. It was like the mid 134s. Um, and the score to beat now is a 224.39. And for Laurence and Guillaume, they had something like a 135 plus in at Europeans. And so you knew that if they had skated well, Laurence and Guillaume had this in the bag, right? Because they are, blade for blade, better ice dancers than Chalk and Bates, but you still have to get everything done. And did they get everything done? I don't think so. Guillaume Cizeron has been having nervy twizzles all week long, and they've gotten better and better. But there were 2 nervy twizzles in this free dance. The opening twizzles, which have given them some problems over the season, um, the first set were fine. That was a set that was, that had gone out of sync for them at Europeans, and the out of sync was actually on Laurence's, end as opposed to Guillaume's end, but it was fine. And then the second set of twizzles, the right forward outsides went just fine until the very end when Guillaume switched edges and almost fell out of them, but he held on to it. And he got leveled down to a 3 because of the edge switch at the end. But if you look at the components or the grades of execution scores on them, it was varied. One of the judges gave him a 0. There were 2s, there were a few 3s, and there were a few 4s. Did that a Was that a 4? That's not a 4. Was that a 3? I don't know if you can call that a 3. It was somewhere between, I would say, a 2 or 3, given that the rest of the sequence was done very well. It was just that very ending, piece of it that both got, the level down and then got out of sync because he was really holding on to the end of that one. So that was the first thing. The second thing was a rotational lift that went a little bit awry. It was very Tasmanian Devil, in the sense that I think he lost his center and axis, and it was valiant that he saved it and the lift didn't come down, but the footwork on that lift, because he had to save it, was really off, and he kind of went off the arc of the original direction of travel with it. I'm looking at these grades of execution right now, and they are mostly 5s and a couple of 4s. If there's anything that Matty Chalk and Evan Bates have over Laurence and Guillaume, it's lifts. Laurence and Guillaume's lifts tend to be simpler, and they tend to be less difficult in, both the 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 actual holds of them, right? And the actual, you know, composition of those lifts. And the thing that I've always wondered was why, we're talking literally element by element by element here, was why if you look at the 2 sets of lifts from these 2 teams, why Matt and Evan are not getting a click higher of, um, grades of execution than Laurence and Guillaume, and especially when you have an issue like that one, which is minor, but major enough that it should not warrant a bunch of 5s. That in itself, right, um, is a reason for the grades of execution to go down. That was number 2. Number 3 was in the step sequence, and I actually, from my vantage point, I actually didn't see it because when Guillaume went into his twizzle in the diagonal step, he was literally sort of right underneath where I was, and so I didn't see how he had done it. But on replay, it was a botched twizzle, and, uh I think that was he had originally got it called a level 4, I think. No, that was Evan Bates. But either way, the twizzle was off, and the the grades of execution, some of those were, um, rightly brought down because of it. There was 1 2 and a few 3s, but then again, a few 4s. And you wonder again why the 4s were there because that was not a well done step sequence given that mistake. So we're talking about two fairly visible errors plus one that was a more nuanced error on the rotational lift. I will leave it to Marco Fabbri and Charlene Guignard, who said they usually prefer the skating of Laurence and Guillaume, but today Chock and Bates deserved the win. I don't know what else to say about that. Um, program components, sure. Give them the program components because they are better skaters and that they really gave it their all out there. But if you're telling me that these elements with the visible errors deserved the types of execution scores that they are supposed to get, I don't know what to say. And so that's what happened, right? It was very close and it should have been very close because a flawless Guillaume and Laurence is a couple of points higher than a flawless Chalk and Bates, but they were not flawless. And Chalk and Bates skated better today. They skated cleaner today, and Laurence and Guillaume didn't. And if you really if you add up the rhythm dance and the free dance, the result should not have been that way. You just have to look like the whole point of this judging system is you have to look at element by element, and that was element by element. Um, so it is what it is. There's a lot of chatter about it right now. There was certainly a lot of chatter in the mix zone earlier, and that was where Guignard and Fabbri were asked about the result, and that was where they were talking about it. Um, we'll it's been decided, right? And I'm sure this is something that's going to be talked about for years, and it's not the first time that people have disagreed with a result, and that's figure skating for you. All right. Well, that's how it all went down. Laurence Fournier Beaudry, Guillaume Cizeron win the Olympics with a 2:25.82. Madison Chock, Evan Bates win their first individual medal at Olympic Games with a silver to add to their two gold medals from the team events from this season and from 4 years ago. And still my favorite free dance of the day, Piper Gilles Poirier with their first Olympic medal of bronze, and they were so thrilled about it, and it was just it was so good. I am going to go and watch Gilles Poirier's free dance again because I can't get enough of it, and I maybe need a little bit of a cry. So it really was a thrilling night of ice dance. Not gonna, you know, the results are the results, but the skating was in general very good. Um, what will be interesting is who does not go to Worlds, or on the flip side, who does go to Worlds, right? Um, you might think that a Chalk and Bates and a Gilles Poirier, like this might have been it for them. Guignard Fabbri, this might have been it for them. And so if you take those out, who's next? Emilea Zingas and Vadym Kolesnik. So this world's field is actually going to be very interesting, I think, and we'll see who actually goes. I'm sure nobody has made their decision quite yet, but I guess we will see. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. It's been a it's been quite the week of figure skating so far. There is a break tomorrow. There's no competition the day after the free dance, and the men have 2 days in between their short program and their free skate. And so, they'll be back on Friday for the men's free skate competition. And so we'll take a little bit of a breather. I will be at practices tomorrow as usual, but we will take a little bit of a breather. All right. That is it. I am Jackie Wong, Chief Skate Nerd of rockerskating.com. Thanks as always to John Wilson Blades and their family of brands for uh, sponsoring this podcast and all the things that we do. And thank you for Tara. Thank you to Tara Nichols for both dealing with all of my things today and editing, and for making me sound decent. And hopefully, we'll get Tara back again soon for one of these recaps. And that's it. I'm sure we will hear from Michelle as to what her feelings are on all these after it's all said and done and we have our final recap. But talk to you soon. Good night.